The Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, is once again at the center of a deepening humanitarian crisis as rebel forces push further into the eastern regions of the country. The latest reports indicate that thousands of civilians are fleeing as armed groups close in on major cities, escalating fears of further violence and instability. The ongoing conflict, driven by complex historical, political, and economic factors, continues to devastate communities, highlighting the urgent need for global intervention. The conflict in the DRC is not new. It is deeply rooted in the country's turbulent history. Following its independence from Belgium in 1960, the country faced decades of dictatorship, political instability, and civil wars. The First and Second Congo Wars, 1996 to 1997 and 1998 to 2003, saw millions of deaths, making them some of the deadliest conflicts since World War II. Even after formal peace agreements were signed, violence persisted, particularly in the mineral-rich eastern regions. The latest escalation is largely attributed to the resurgence of the M23 rebel group, which has gained strength in recent months. The M23 movement, composed of former Congolese soldiers, initially emerged in 2012, claiming to fight against government corruption and for the protection of ethnic Tutsis in the region. After a brief period of peace, the group resumed hostilities in 2021, accusing the DRC government of failing to honor past agreements. As rebels push toward Goma, a key city in eastern Congo, the situation is becoming increasingly dire. Many residents are fleeing to neighboring Rwanda and Uganda, seeking safety from the intensifying violence. The humanitarian crisis is worsening by the day, with aid organizations struggling to provide food, shelter, and medical assistance to displaced families. One of the primary drivers of the conflict is the DRC's vast natural resources. The country is home to some of the world's largest reserves of gold, diamonds, and rare minerals, such as coltan, which is essential for manufacturing smartphones and electronics. These resources should be a source of prosperity, but instead, they have fueled conflict as various armed groups, including rebels and foreign-backed militias, fight to control these lucrative assets. Calculations show that the illegal trade of minerals in eastern Congo generates billions of dollars annually, much of which funds rebel operations. Reports indicate that at least 70% of the world's coltan supply comes from the DRC, with many global tech companies relying on these minerals. The high demand for resources means that local militias, international corporations, and even foreign governments have vested interests in the region's instability, benefiting from the exploitation of Congo's wealth while civilians suffer. To put this into perspective, imagine a small mining village in eastern Congo. While residents dig for minerals in dangerous conditions, armed groups seize control of the trade, selling the resources on the black market. These profits then fund further attacks, allowing rebels to buy more weapons and expand their influence. The cycle of conflict continues, leaving millions trapped in poverty and insecurity. The inability of the Congolese government to maintain control over its vast territory has further fueled the conflict. The DRC, roughly the size of Western Europe, is challenging to govern due to weak state institutions, corruption, and a lack of military resources. Despite international efforts to stabilize the region, including the presence of over 13,000 UN peacekeepers, violence continues to spiral out of control. Another factor contributing to the conflict is the involvement of neighboring countries. Rwanda and Uganda have been accused of supporting rebel groups like M23, allegedly backing them to gain access to Congo's mineral wealth. While these governments deny direct involvement, reports suggest that armed groups receive weapons, intelligence, and funding from foreign allies. The DRC government has repeatedly called for international pressure on its neighbors, but little has been done to hold these actors accountable. At the same time, internal political disputes further weaken Congo's stability. President Félix Tshisekedi's government has struggled to implement effective security policies, and many Congolese citizens feel abandoned. With upcoming elections, tensions are rising, and rebel groups are exploiting political uncertainty to expand their control. As rebels advance toward key cities, the humanitarian toll is devastating. The United Nations reports that more than 6.9 million people are currently displaced in the DRC, making it one of the world's worst displacement crises. Families are forced to flee with little more than the clothes on their backs, seeking refuge in overcrowded camps or crossing into neighboring countries. For example, in the town of Rutshuru, a mother of 3 describes the desperate situation. "We ran when we heard the gunshots. We left everything behind, our home, our food, our livestock. We don't know if we'll ever return." This is the harsh reality for millions of Congolese civilians caught in a war they did not choose. Humanitarian organizations are calling for increased international support, but funding remains limited. The World Food Programme estimates that over 26 million people in the DRC face food insecurity, yet aid efforts are severely underfunded. Without immediate action, the situation is likely to worsen, leading to more displacement, hunger, and suffering. The DRC's conflict is complex, but solutions exist. The international community must step up efforts to hold rebel groups and foreign backers accountable, ensuring that those fueling the violence face consequences. Additionally, global tech companies that rely on Congolese minerals must implement stricter ethical sourcing policies, cutting off financial support for armed groups. At the same time, the Congolese government must strengthen its military, improve governance, and address corruption to regain control over its territories. A long-term peace strategy must involve regional cooperation, political stability, and economic opportunities for communities affected by conflict. The question remains, will the world finally pay attention to the crisis in the DRC, or will the cycle of violence continue? Stay informed by subscribing to my YouTube channel for in-depth analyses and breaking news updates. Follow me on TikTok for quick news highlights and join the discussion. What should be done to end the Congo conflict? Share your thoughts in the comments below.